Hey there, Knicks fans. How you doing? It's your boy, Jonathan Macri. I don't even know where the rails are. We haven't even gotten started on the show. With you for another episode of the Knicks Film School Podcast. Hi, Jeremy. How are you?
Hey, John. I'm great. I was at the Knicks game last night. And
how was that?
It was great. But you know what the best moment was? When they showed the Mets on the screen and the entire Madison Square Garden booed. They booed every single person there. Yeah, it was a good moment.
Congratulations. That was awesome. Biggest Yankee win of the offseason. Biggest thing they've done this winter. The Mets getting booed. I'll take Juan Soto personally.
Sure, that's fine.
No Commanders, by the way, Josh. Yes. I'm glad that maybe one of your teams will actually win a trophy this year. Yeah.
Andrew's not used to celebrating when it actually matters, so that's.
I'm not, but I did this winter when the Mets signed Juan Soto.
You needed something to.
My jersey's over there, by the way. It looks amazing. Fine. It has stripes. Remember how he went from a team that used to have stripes because apparently they matter, and now he switched to another team with stripes.
Yeah, you pitched that really well. Actually, you should try doing that for the Mets because I hear they need an entire rotation.
They have the exact same rotation. They went to the NLCS.
All right, I'm calling it. It's a tie.
Yeah, because.
Yeah, we were having some fun before we hit record, and now things are in shambles. Jeremy, how you doing? So you were at the Garden last night for Knicks Kings, finishing off a very a good week overall, a week that we will certainly get into. But this was quite the capper. You've been to a number of games this year. I imagine this is the most fun you've had at the Garden this season?
Yeah, considering the other 3 games I went to were all losses, this was definitely the most fun of the 4. Yeah, John, I would agree with that. That's a good assessment. I was also at the Nets game, and that was another home game, though. So it's 2-3 for the Knicks at home, I suppose. But the energy's getting better. It's always much nicer in a win than it is in a loss.
Yes.
But I think seeing the entire offense produce gave good vibes. It was at some point in the second quarter where I swear I looked at my friend and I said, I don't feel great about this lead, as fun as this is. And then it was a 2-point game. And then the Knicks did their thing and it was great. And then I didn't have to worry anymore. But it just goes to show what that second quarter, it definitely was a scare, but outside of that, felt like a blip on the radar.
Yeah, I mean, the way I put it on the post game was like it was essentially a perfect basketball game with the exception of 6 minutes, in the back half of the second quarter, where a combination of some transition foibles, let's say, and then obviously some pick and roll issues, got Kings back in the game. But yeah, I mean, looking at the week as a whole, starting out obviously with a very nice win against the Hawks. You mentioned the win in Brooklyn. That was probably, I'd argue, far closer than it should have been. And then this Kings game, it almost feels to me like a little bit of not a reset on the season, but coming into the Hawks game, for my money, it was coming off that Timberwolves loss, and it wasn't just that it was the Timberwolves loss. It was that the only wins that they had gotten in the previous, I guess, 2.5, 3 weeks were against the Sixers, a game that went to overtime. It shouldn't have gone to overtime. The Sixers are obviously not a good team. A win against a Toronto team that's not very good, and a win against a Bucks team that the Knicks own. There was I thought we had hit not rock bottom, but in terms of the vibes, in terms of how fans were discussing the team, in terms of all that sort of stuff, I did feel it was kind of at a low point. And now we've had these 3 straight wins, and were any of the wins perfect? No. In different ways, all 3 of these games were microcosms of the season itself, with some of the things that were good and some of the things that weren't good. But I don't know. It kind of feels like the Knicks are back on track. Is that too much of a generalization for what we saw this week?
Week by week, absolutely. But I thought that the reactions to what happened the week prior were extreme, or at least more extreme than I would have had. I mean, because we went on the pod and we said, hey, this wasn't a good week. There are things we would have done differently. And I even said that the teams ahead of the Knicks, they're not playing perfect basketball either. They're struggling a bit too. And I was a little surprised I glanced at some of the comments at love or hating the fact that the Cavs and the Celtics doing what they were doing. It's a totally different story because here's the Knicks. And then what happened this past week? The Cavs dropped 3 games. I mean, Mobley missed time too, but But as far as I'm concerned, those are losses where it matttters.
He was back last night against the Rockets.
Yeah, exactly. So, and the Celtics, they got blown out by the Lakers. They had a really nice game against a very injured Mavs team. And then they barely beat the Clippers in LA. It's not a great week for them, but they went 2-1. Like the point being, there are going to be bumps on the road depending on which week you get. And some teams are going to be really good and some teams are not. And the Knicks got caught in a week where they played an Atlanta Hawks team that they had lost to twice, where they took Dyson Daniels out of the picture, which helped with Jalen Brunson a bit. A Nets team that consistently plays up to competition. They have beaten, they beat the Celtics, I believe. They came close to beating the Cavs a couple times.
They've had some quality wins. And they were coming off. I mean, they were demolished by the Clippers in LA, but then the very next game, they very nearly beat the Lakers, who were not a bad team. So they come to play usually. Absolutely.
Yeah. It's a rivalry game and to me, they're a better team than their record suggests. And then last night, the Kings had lost 2 games since firing Mike Brown. And they did that in late December. They've hit a really nice stretch with Doug Christie, and the Knicks swiftly put them in their place. So it's a good week to have. And so to your point, do I think they're back on track? I don't know if they ever fully left. There were warning signs. There are things that are concerning. I still see this as one of the few teams that's made it to 30 wins already. It's a great threshold to have. And as a testament to what they do, I know it's not about 2 players, but they had 2 players who just were nominated to the All-Star starting team. So clearly they're doing some things right. They've just got to fine tune some areas of concern where they can add players, whether internally or externally, figure it out. But it feels good to see a 3-0 week, and that things are starting to at least feel back on track from the fan perspective.
It feels good to see a 3-0 week, and I'm happy you shouted out the 30 wins because it feels good to see the numbers 3-0 in the win column. And to put that into perspective, I don't know, maybe this is a silly thing, but they are at 30-16. They have 14 more wins than losses. The team that is immediately behind them in the standings, the Milwaukee Bucks, has 7 more wins than losses. So the Knicks have twice as many more wins than losses. I don't know if that's English, than the team immediately behind them in the standings, which to me is I find that to be significant. I think there has been so much attention paid to the Knicks not being necessarily on the same level as certainly the Cavs this season, as far as wins and losses are concerned. Although, as I said it on the post game last night, Knicks and Cavs defensive rating right now is less than a point per 100 possessions apart, and that's not for the last couple of weeks or whatever. That's just for the whole season. So for all the issues that, or all the consternation about New York's defense, it's not like the Cavs defense is worlds better than them. And then the Celtics, as you mentioned, the Celtics have kind of been scuffling on their own. They've won that last game against the Mavs. They're 6-4 in their last 10. There's 2 games separating the Knicks and the Celtics. I don't know. Actually, let's stop there for a second. What they have? So the Knicks have this stretch. They have 8 more games until the All-Star break. 7 of them come against good teams, with the one exception being a Toronto game that they have to go second night of a back-to-back and play on the road. What's at stake right now for this team? I mean, the Celtics, they could catch the Celtics. Is that a big deal to you? Do you really want the 2 seed? Do you care at all about the 2 seed? Is this 8 games, next 8 games? I mean, include the Kings in this, which they already ticked that one off. Is it more of a proof? Are we still seeking proof of concept? What are we looking for right now?
Wins.
I know that boil it down to
sure, but isn't that what it is? You play to win the game.
Of course, yes.
Right. But I mean, as far as it's the second seed important to me. Sure, the first seed is more important as far as I see it. But do I think the first seed's attainable? Probably not. Would I like to have home court advantage against the Celtics if it gets to that point in the Eastern Conference semis? I would. Did it help the Knicks when they were playing the Pacers? It did not, but also so much of their team was injured.
Or the Heat, for that matter.
Right. Previously. Exactly. Yeah. That too. The question for me is, do these games from a morale standpoint matter when they're facing teams that are in that same or similar tier, right? Like, yeah, the Grizzlies, next game that they're playing. I would love to see them beat the Grizzlies. A main reason, Knicks are 0-5 against teams that are around their record or better. The Timberwolves are just around there because they've lost to the Cavs, the Celtics.
They lost to the Cavs, Celtics, Thunder twice, and Rockets. So, 0-5.
So I think, if anything, more from a personal fandom standpoint, I'd love to see it not just because, hey, win's a win, but we need to start seeing this team not just beating up on the teams that are below them. As we've talked about before, there are a lot of teams below them. So if you only focus on the games that are above the Knicks, then that would mean that you've been unhappy this entire season. And maybe some fans are. I haven't been unhappy this whole season. I think this has been largely a positive season that's trending in the right direction. But yeah, they're 30-16. Phil Jackson often talked about what contender status is of the get to 40 wins before 20 losses. Do I believe that the Knicks will get to? Yeah.
It's a good. I don't know. I can't believe I never heard that. That's a good line. Yeah.
And if you look at past precedents, there's merit to it. Absolutely. Do I think the Knicks are going to go 11-4 or at least get to 10-3? No, I don't.
10-3, yeah.
I don't think they will. With that said, they got a major roster shakeup 3 days before training camp began. So I'm understanding of why it might take some time, whereas other teams have built chemistry. The Cavs made their big trade 2 years ago, and then they filled out their roster and had time to figure it out. The Celtics had years to grow and keep developing chemistry. The Thunder, it's taken them some time to get better every single year. The Grizzlies have played together. I mean, they've been injured quite a lot, but they've been collective. The Rockets making a nice leap for themselves, but it's taken them a few years to really get out of the mud. So I don't think the Knicks will get to that status to clinch for them, but I really want to start seeing them play meaningful games against teams that are on par with them. If anything, because I just want to start to, it's not going to say to me, well, the Knicks are going to have a better or worse chance to win a first or second round matchup. But it'd be nice in the interim because we can't see that far ahead. So for right now, I'd love to say, like they're beating teams that are of their equivalent level. We just don't really have that point of pride to say yet. And I'm hopeful that over this, 8 games you said?
Yeah.
And even after
the All-Star break. Yeah.
And even after that, because I know they play the Cavs and the Celtics, it's Bulls, Cavs, Celtics. So just collecting a few meaningful wins there. That would go a long way for fandom, but not for the Knicks as a whole.
Yeah. So after these next 8, which we've talked about a lot, out of the All-Star break, you just referenced it. Bulls, Cavs, Celtics, then Sixers, then Grizzlies again, Heat, Warriors, and then there's a West Coast swing. So like they absolutely have their work cut out for them. I would agree with you. I'd be beyond stunned if they got to 40 wins before they got to 20 losses. A team I referenced on the postgame last night, because it's been brought up, I think by us and by other people when thinking about this team, is the 2010-11 Miami Heat. Again, had 2 of the greatest players of all time in their primes, not to mention Chris Bosh, who's pretty darn good in his own right. At this point in their inaugural season together, they were only 2 games ahead of where the Knicks are. They went on to go on a run. I just looked it up while you were talking. They got to 40 wins with only 15 losses. So like maybe not a fair comparison in that respect, but on the flip side, no, they have not had a win against one of those other 5 teams in the league who are in their class. But like, if you look at they've beaten the Bucks twice. The Bucks are 4th in the East. The Pacers have kind of put together their season in a way that they hadn't earlier in the year. So, I mean, the Knicks' first win of the season was against the Pacers. I don't know how much that matters. Same thing with their earlier win against Detroit. Detroit was stinking up the joint during that time. But if you go out west, beat the Nuggets. They're 4th in the West. beat the Timberwolves 7th in the West, beat the Suns 8th in the West, beat the Kings, who are kind of playing better. So like, it's not like they don't have solid wins. Like, they have solid wins. It's just a matter of, can you rack up a few that are more than solid? And I would say that the Grizzlies game on Monday is an opportunity to do so. I would argue that the Nuggets game is an opportunity to do so as well, because the Nuggets, again, their record may not be the same, but if you look at how they have played over the last month or so, they're playing, as well as any team in the league. And they have a Rockets game coming up also in this stretch, who obviously the Rockets got them in Houston, but the Rockets have had some really quality wins, including over the aforementioned Cavs on Saturday night. So definitely some stuff to learn. Can we talk about really
quickly? Yeah. Because you mentioned the solid wins. I totally agree with you. And I think the word that we're missing is signature. There aren't a lot of signature wins. There are a lot of solid wins. There are some gritty ones too, but signature wins is just the one thing I'd like for them to start piecing together. And
it's I'm so happy you say that, because you could have made the argument going into the Kings game that if they beat the Kings with how the Kings have been playing, that could go down as a signature win. And yet you saw how the Kings defended, or rather didn't defend, because you were there, and like they were just so grossly overmatched. It was frightening. Yeah, the Knicks kicked the crap out of them, but like, you look at how the game unfolded, it's like, well, was that really a signature win when the team that they were playing could offer up? So like, it's almost like a signature win can only come if the team that you are beating plays well in the game. If they don't bring it, then it's like, it doesn't matter what you do. It's like, oh, well, they didn't bring it, so now it can't go down as a signature win, which, I don't know if that's unfair, but it just is the reality. Like, again, the Nuggets, when the Knicks beat the Nuggets earlier in the year, the Nuggets didn't play well in that game. Everybody knows the Nuggets didn't play well in that game. They weren't playing that great at the time. I would imagine it'd be different this time around, but we'll see. Great. I want to talk a little bit about some of the off-court stuff or thing. It's really one thing. Did you catch OG Anunoby's answer to Bill Pito after the game? When Bill Pito, I'm happy to tell you what the situation was if you need.
Please do, for those who didn't hear it.
Sure. So OG Anunoby scored 33 points in the game. The first time that he has led the Knicks in scoring in a game in exactly 2 months. He was awesome. As you know, he was looking for his shot. He hitting his threes, the whole thing. Not right now, Seth. And after the game, Bill Pito, friend of the pod, Bill Pito, asked OG, like, he's like, hey, you scored 17 or more in 4 of your last 5 games. Have you changed your approach? Are you more aggressive now? And I have it right here. He said, shout out to New York Basketball, who always transcribes these quotes. He said, there was a spell when I wasn't getting touches and I wasn't getting shots. Just trying to be more aggressive, trying to insert myself into the game. We have a great team, so it's hard to figure it out, but it's getting better and better. And I saw this, and I, of course, like many people did, thought of Josh Hart's recent post-game quotes about egos and agendas and things. And it seems like there's some overlap here between what he's talking about and maybe what Hart was referencing. I'm having trouble wrapping my mind around where this is, if I should be not bothered or worried, but like, I'm just having trouble wrapping my mind around this. And I'm curious if you have any insights, or do you care? If you don't care, just say you don't care, because that's as good an answer as any.
Generally, no, but I'll still entertain it because it's not not important at all. Sure, I mean there's merit to it. With Josh Hart, he just yaps a lot of the time. At least that's the perception that I get, and that's fine.
Let true.
Josh Hart talks. He's one of the most vocal players on this team, but his comments always felt like they were geared towards OG, because it felt like, okay, if you're talking about the starting lineup, you're probably not talking about the 2 players who are all-stars. And you're probably not talking about your friend from college, Mikal Bridges, who was acquired to do more, and at that time was doing more. And the player who was struggling from the shooting, from how his role was offensively, it was OG. And I know that based on how he's talked before, if Josh Hart were talking about Josh Hart, he would have said, he would have said, this is what I need to do. And he didn't do that.
Can I add one small thing?
Please. Yes.
The first time the comment was made, the Eagles agendas thing was made after the Magic game that we attended together. Karl-Anthony Towns did not play in that game.
Yes.
So would have been odd for him if he was talking about someone in particular, which, by the way, we should note for the record, he has since denied that he was talking about anyone in particular, but just throwing that out there. It would seem odd that he would be talking about someone in particular who did not play in the game in which he made the comment. But yeah. But
I can understand from OG Anunoby's perspective as well. You know, this is someone who, for so much of his career, was fit into a box. This is what he is. This is what he does. And he does it at a price point that's largely affordable. And then he hits the open market and he signs this massive contract, which still totally in favor of. And now it's a question of validation. Or how do you prove to get that contract? Well, we know a Defensive Player of the Year award probably not happening because it's going to be Victor Wembanyama's league very soon, starting defensively maybe this year. So that's right. Yeah. So it's a question of, well, does being first or second team all defense, is that the thing that validates the contract? And I don't think it is. I think there has to be more on the offensive end. Then as these players settle into their roles, there's chemistry, of course, but then they have to work out the kinks. And seeing OG, I can understand from his perspective of, like, I'm paid the second highest on this team, but I'm a fourth or sometimes even fifth, but largely probably fourth option on the offensive end. And then defensively, do you feel like he's been really strong defensively, but also kind of operating in the shadows as opposed to front and center?
I think he's had an up and down season defensively. I think he started off the year as a legit all defense first team, not only candidate, but like over his first 20-25 games, I trying to be objective, I would have been like, oh yeah, you should be an odds-on favorite to make the all defense first team based on how you played. Then over maybe the next 15 or 20 games, his impact, I think, was more muted. There was a specific stretch where, and I'm not the only person who's, as others have said this, where it's like there, maybe like a ball that you would normally think that he would get to, maybe doesn't quite get to. And, we saw him have some even trouble with like one-on-one and stuff. And now I think it's been better since then. But I also think that conversation is so complicated because there's the energy issue. Is he playing too many minutes? Is he tired? And that's why he started to fall off. And then thinking of Benji and Fred on Fred's pod this week, talking about how he is less effective in a more conservative scheme because it gives him less opportunity to do the things that make him OG Anunoby, where these splash plays and things. And so I think my short answer is it's complicated, but yeah.
No, I think it's totally fair. And I think fans also, we all forget how difficult it is to be elite on both sides of the ball. It takes a lot of energy out to guard a team's best wing and then have to be productive or even better than productive on offense. It's not just serviceable. It's especially, again, with that contract. So I can understand if he's trying to find his role on the team is clicking, but he's not quite right. And for that starting five, everyone's got to be in lockstep, in unison on exactly what the role is required of them. And if one person starts to suffer, you can compensate, but then it's a lot out of the homeostasis of the team. The equilibrium's a little bit off because you're now compensating to get back to where you need to be. But if they're all clicking, like we saw, especially in the Kings game, you don't have that problem. Everyone's just doing their own thing and it works out just fine.
Yeah. I have so many thoughts about this, and I'm not sure if any of it matters. And like at the end of the day, to be very clear, I'm not concerned about this because I just have an inherent, hopefully not naive, trust in the fabric of this particular locker room. Like, I think there's like, when it comes to Tibbs and like locker room issues, I think there's pluses and minuses. I think there is a potential good side to him just being like, everybody do your fucking job, and like, but he also doesn't, he's not the guy to go in and smooth any of this over, because he could quite literally give in his mind, that doesn't matter. If it doesn't have to do with basketball, and in his mind doesn't have to do with basketball, even though it has everything to do with basketball, whatever. That's the whole thing. But it's like Brunson is still there. And for as much as Hart may be the vocal leader, I do think that Brunson's kind of quiet, steady presence, and also Cat. And like Cat's a different kind of leader, but I do think he's a leader in a way as well. And I think his spirit and his how jovial he is, how much he just has so much love for it, seemingly like everything about what he does. Like, I guess I'm just not worried about this thing like crumbling from within. All that said, as you said, it seems like there is something here, and I'm just trying to figure out what is it? Is it just as simple as like OG wants more shots? But like but the game that Hart said, putting, you got to put your egos and agendas aside, or the two games, I guess, the Orlando game, Anunoby took 11 shots. He was 4 of 11. He scored 9 points. And then in the Oklahoma City game, took 8 shots. He was 2 of 8, like scored 4 points. And so usually, like in my mind, it's like if someone's talking about egos and agendas and putting that stuff aside, it's like, don't always be looking for your own shot. Like, look for your teammates, like make the right pass. And I don't think that that's what we're talking about here. If anything, it's like, be more aggressive. The selfless thing to do is be more aggressive. This is why it's not computing in my head, and I feel like a crazy person, but I don't know.
I get it. And also, it's not like these things just happened in those games. And I talked about it. It's probably a long time coming.
Sure.
And it may have been something in those games that we analyze and project as being the case. It could have been something totally different, and they just happened to be at the same time. And like he's just venting, but venting somewhat responsibly, not irresponsibly, but also not the most responsibly. Because if it were the most responsibly, he'd probably just keep it in house and they'd figure it out. But and that's not shade. It's just you'd want to probably keep what you need to say and say it more directly as opposed to floating it out. But Josh is also a character. He'll say whatever comes to mind, and especially the whole bench thing where he doesn't know what role he's in. And then,
that's
right. But that's
himself into,
But that's exactly it. It's a perfect example of Josh just talking, and the Knicks are like, all right, you got it out of your system. Let's go back and do it. And then Josh is well regulated after that. He got it off his chest.
My guess is it's probably more something like, even if you're not maybe getting the shots that you want, you still got to bring it like every play, because that's what the team needs you to do. And that's what the team requires of you in this instance. Also, the whole OG grenade thing has kind of been a thing too, where he's not always one that wants the ball in the final seconds of the shot clock. And he's thrown a few of those this year, but so I don't know. I'm again, not worried, but just like last thing I'll say on this, then we can move on, give out a game ball is, I don't know that there's any perfect comparison between this team and the last Knicks teams to win the championship, which were obviously very unique in a lot of ways. But like, if you wanted to make, you're a big smug on your big
you can check the chat and you'll see exactly why.
Oh, hold on. This is because I don't have private chat on.
That's okay.
Oh, I did it. Yeah, there we go.
I swear to God, every time, just let people watch the show. You don't have to tell them what's next. They've seen the show before. Just let them watch. You don't have to tell them what's next. I love you.
This is such a pet peeve of Andrews. I love it.
Because it's a producer's note that I gave 5 shows ago, and you keep doing it every show. every interview, every show, every post game. We'll get to the super chats. Yes, they know it comes after the monologue. Yes. Okay, I'm done.
The things that drive Andrew crazy they give me life.
He's really angsty today, don't you think?
He's a little when cranky. when his baseball team gets booed.
That's a good point.
At Madison Square Garden. I mean, it can't be easy. I wouldn't know what that's like. Anyway, I've lost my train of thought. If one wanted to make the comparison between OG Anunoby or the most idealized version of OG Anunoby and Dave DeBusschere on the championship teams, I think one could do so. Dave DeBusschere was arguably the best perimeter defender in the league at that time. I mean, he was literally all defense first team every year he was in the league that they voted for the award. And this was before they gave out Defensive Player of the Year. Otherwise, he probably would have won a couple of those too. And I was just looking it up. Dave DeBusschere, his time with the Knicks up until his very last season, which is the 73-74 team when they were kind of a little bit of a different squad. He averaged between 14 and 16 points a game. And if you're thinking, well, they didn't score nearly as many points back then at that time in the NBA, actually not the case. Average points per game, if you look at it for that time period, was really right around where it is now. 112, 116, 112, 110. This season, teams are averaging 113 points a game. So pretty much the same. And OG's averaging 16 points a night. And I get he's fourth, right? He's fourth on the depth chart in terms of points per game. He's after the big two and then McCall. And he doesn't maybe get the opportunities that those guys get, but I hope whatever itch he needs scratched periodically is not going to keep him / them from achieving their goals, because I really do believe the very best version of OG Anunoby, and we saw him last night, it could be the difference between them winning a title and not. I don't think that's an overstatement.
It's not at all. He's the player that they've craved archetype-wise for so many years that teams need in order to boost their ceiling, and Knicks have him.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
Yeah, no, it's well said. Okay. Now we will get to game ball, which we're doing now, not later. We're going to do it right now. And that is what we are doing.
Great English.
It's A+ podcasting right here.
Sounded like AI came to life in that sentence.
I've still never used AI. One of these days I'm going to use it for something. I don't know for what, but I'll use it. Maybe AI should give out my game ball this week. Given to a player, coach, or entity that stood out this week and deserves special recognition. Here's the best compliment I can give to Andrew. I really miss the candidates. I know it's puts extra work on his plate, and it's like, at the end of the day, we're going to give it to whoever we give it to.
I thought we discovered something. I thought we discovered that you guys were better off coming up with something on your own.
You know what it is? You were quippy in the descriptions, and I enjoyed the quippiness. That's what.
Oh, okay. Jalen Brunson, Karl-Anthony Towns, Josh Hart, Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby. Pick one.
Is Tom Thibodeau not a candidate?
I was actually going to jump up and give a Tibbs a game ball after.
Oh, okay. I don't want to. Oh, okay. Yeah. I won't blow up.
Since we have no detention this week.
This is true. That's fair. Okay. I am going first.
Mm-hmm.
Towns only played 2 games this week, right? He missed. What did he miss? He played in all 3 games, right?
Played every game.
Played every game. He missed. Oh, that's right. He missed the game last week.
Missed 2 last week.
He did miss 2 last week. Yeah, Towns hasn't had the best week shooting wise in his return game, which is unfortunate because you feel like he should get a recognition because he just got named an All-Star starter. I'll give it to Brunson. I'll give it to Jalen Brunson to be named an All-Star starter after. I mean, just to I know we've put this in perspective 18 different ways, and I'm going to try to do it a 19th way. But it's not only that you were not taken in the first round. It's not only that you were essentially benched by your coach for a playoff series after midway through your career. It's that you showed glimpses of what you could be. We saw this in the playoffs against the Jazz when he was with the Mavericks, when Luka Doncic did not play and Jalen Brunson said, "It's okay, I got this. I'll go out and beat Donovan Mitchell." And still, the team that he was on was like, "No, there's a price point that we oh, you didn't come back to give us a chance to make an offer. All right, well, I guess we're just going to let you walk." And he is now a starting guard for the Eastern Conference All-Stars. And that is just in a league where we feel like we know everything within the first half a season of a player's rookie year. The fact that he has continued to evolve and he has continued to grow to the point where he has reached, maybe not the pinnacle of his profession. I mean, winning a championship, winning an MVP, those two things in some order would be the pinnacle. But to get to this point where everybody seems to agree, fans, media, players, obviously the coaches would have voted him as one of the two best guards in the conference. Now they won't need to. It's just an ultimate testament to his work ethic and and if I'm going to shout out a particular game from this week, I think it has to be the Brooklyn game, which was through 3.5 quarters, probably his worst game of the year. And yet it is a testament to his mental and emotional fortitude that he could just shake it off. He doesn't get down. And last 5 minutes of that game, or last 3 minutes really of that game, it's like, all right, my team needs me now. I'm going to go and do exactly what they need. And he did, and they won. And he's led them to a lot of wins and 5,000 points faster than any Knick in history, besting Carmelo Anthony and Bernard King. Decent basketball players by one game.
It's a good choice. Captain Clutch also won the NBA Cares Award for the month of December. So
Thank
that was
a
nice little gift for him too. Yeah, phenomenal. To your point, to go from second round pick to all-star starter is a tremendous achievement. I'd say the other player that I would give it to, on the flip side of that, Karl-Anthony Towns, just not a second round pick by any stretch, the first overall pick in the 2015 draft. But Cat, in his own right, he was floundering in Minnesota. They were winning games, but the perception of him was different than the player that we see him to be. He was very transparent about his life and Tom Thibodeau's and where they were the last time they were linked together, and now how they've each grown individually and how they're blossoming as a result. And I think that's a tremendous amount of maturity to be able to look at yourself, look at the perceptions, and embrace them in such a way that makes you the best version of yourself. And for Karl-Anthony Towns to be just purely the Knicks having two all-star starters, I think is phenomenal. That's 40% of the starting lineup for the East.
It is.
It's just pretty cool. Speaking of 40%, that's another consistent number, because I'm going to give a shout out to John. I don't know if you know this, but the Oscars, the nominations came out this past week as well. And 40%. Yes, you did. And 40% of the best actor category went to the one, the only, Fiorello H. LaGuardia High School in the drama department. So shout out to Adrian Brody and Timothy Chalamet for that. Knicks get 40% of their starting lineup. Good week for New York.
Didn't realize Brody went to LaGuardia.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Had no idea. That's a great job by you.
Thanks.
Okay.
I wasn't the reason he got in, but
no, I mean he's a decent actor. Okay. Andrew, you want to give your shout out to your favorite head coach or no?
Yes, we put him collectively in detention and blamed him for everything last week. And I thought it was just appropriate rewatching the game this morning. Really my first watch, because I had the game on the second screen last night. But I thought yesterday was one of his better games, like an exceptional Tibbs game, between going with a multitude of different lineups in the first half. I got to see my deuce plus the starters lineup in the second half, and it looked really good in that stretch. But more specifically, I thought the Kings were killing the drop, and partially how they got back in the game in the second quarter. And then in the second half was transition. Cat, as much as we love him and he deserves all the accolades, especially to be an all-star starter, can leave something to be desired in drop coverage. And at times in transition, just he's a big lumbering dude, especially when he takes a shot and falls out of bounds. And he went to Precious midway towards the end of the third quarter and then stuck with it until 4 minutes left in the fourth. And the Knicks built a 21-point lead over that stretch. The game told him what to do. I thought the head coach was very, very, very good in his execution of the lineups and the game plan. And look, if Knicks fans that have felt anxiety or angst or John's favorite word, consternation throughout the season, what this team looks like with a couple days off should give you some hope, maybe for next Saturday's watch party when they have 2 days off before they play the Lakers, the following Saturday where they play the Celtics after 3 days off, and then the playoffs where there are no back-to-backs when they'll get 1 and 2 days off significant most of the time, and it could give them a significant edge. So to head coach Tom Thibodeau, bravo, you get my game ball since there's no detention this week.
Shout out to Josh Hart also. We've talked a lot about Josh Hart and his quotes, but he had a pretty great week as well. So everybody deserves all the game balls. It was a good week for the Knicks. And let's see if it can continue. Let's move on. Yes, Andrew or Jeremy.
One gripe, and this shouldn't take away from Andrew's game ball by any stretch.
I think I know exactly where this is going. Go ahead.
Yeah, you should know exactly where this is going because I got to tell you, seeing Cat get put back in the game with 4.5 minutes left was so damn annoying.
Wild.
And then I hearing people in my section screaming to get him out of the game
when he fell into
he goes into the stands.
Oh my God.
And I'm just like, this is my worst nightmare. This is going to feel like a loss. And fortunately he was fine, but it made no sense. And then I did a pit stop to the bathroom because I left before the game ended. Sorry, but I wanted to beat the staircase traffic. And I'm still as I'm going, I then hear Karl-Anthony Towns, how is he still playing? This doesn't make any sense. And then as I'm washing my hands, I hear he's being checked out of the game. It's like, well, he probably shouldn't have been there in the first place. So, but it's fine. It's not, you can't be, it's hard to get perfection. I totally agree with you, Andrew, in terms of giving him a game ball, but it just was like, man, why are we inviting this evil into our home?
I was for 3 quarters and 12 minutes this is an exceptional Tibbs game, and then seeing that him come in when the rest of the garbage time 5 was the bench unit, Jacob Toppin had checked in. I also had the same frustration. Can I get reckless for a second?
Oh my God. Yes. What?
Yes.
So shout out to the fine folks at BetUS, DraftKings, whichever one we want to acknowledge as our sponsor right now. Cat's total for points plus rebounds yesterday was 31.5. He made a bucket. He whatever he did in that stretch got him
2 buckets, I believe.
So it got him to 18 and 15, which hit the over.
I was going to say, I think Tibbs, who clearly cares about individual players counting stats, I think he just wanted all 5 of his starters to get to 20 points. That's my belief.
Could be. But Andrew, you know how I know that was a thing? Because the people in the audience were cheering when it happened. And I just thought, I don't care. Get him out of the game. Your money doesn't mean anything to me. My happiness and my sanity are more important than your wallets. I'm sorry.
So last night, what I noticed, second screen, but I did notice that the garbage time had started and the Kings had pulled their starters and saw Cat make the bucket. Didn't see Cat make the bucket. What I saw was Precious in for most of the fourth. And I was wondering if Cat got hurt. And when I looked up his name, I don't Google, I searched Twitter, and everybody's complaining come on, put him back in. I'm 1 point shy of hitting the over.
My God.
How gambling has changed how we watch sports these days. So it was a note that he got to stay in, get a couple more buckets, and it was 2 falls too many. And then Tibbs campaign opted to foul and get Jericho Simpson. Crisis averted, folks. We'll take it.
And good call on the through shouting out Tibbs. Good call shouting out Precious Achua, who helped change the game defensively. Okay. Predictions. We got 3-game week. Memphis Monday, 7:30. Denver Wednesday, 7:30. That's an ESPN game. And then the aforementioned Laker game, which we are doing a watch party, our 1-year anniversary watch party at T Squared Social. Be there or BT Squared. We're giving away that great surprise signed jersey box, which again, we don't know what's in there, but one lucky person will find out. So that's going to be awesome. And that again, Saturday night, tip off 8:30. Party starts at T Squared Social at 7:30. That's an ABC game, of course. I am going to put you in the exact same spot I put you last week, and I'm going to go 2-1.
I'll go 1-2. I should have gone 3-0. I know if I go 3-0, they'll go 1-2. So picking 1-2, they'll do better than that. So you're welcome, Knicks fans.
At some point, I am going to want to see the standings for this year, because I just, inquiring minds want to know. That's all.
A lot too little. I would feel exactly the same way if I just were murked every single year, except for last year when you should have been. But I guess we didn't want to get my feedback for one of the games. Crazy that people who win don't get to get first dibs apparently anymore.
I don't make the rules. I tried to make the rules earlier.
You tried, yeah. You're crap.
All right, we got to get out of here. This is great, Jeremy. Anything else before we leave? Great cream, by the way, this past week. I didn't get a chance to tell you that, but for anybody who hasn't checked that out yet, it's as relevant now as it was when you did it during the week.
Thank you, John. I appreciate that.
Cream show, the show Cream. Cash rules everything.
Oh, it's show. Me. I know.
And GMS is muted. He doesn't realize he's muted, but that's.
I'm glad you love Jeremy's cream.
I'm not going to go there. Anything else from you, Jeremy?
Any more cream?
Not right now, but in the distant future. It's the refractory period.
More cream show? Got it.
Yeah.
Boy. Andrew, anything we missed?
No. Speaking of things you want to... You got any cookies, John?
Oh, yeah.
There we go.
Sure. Shout out to everybody who during the post-game show and after the post-game show bought my daughter's Girl Scout cookies. Is the link going to be in the episode description here? Okay, great.
Yeah, why not?
So if you want to help support my daughter and her Girl Scout troop here in Brooklyn, selling Girl Scout cookies, you could click on the link in the description of this episode, both on the YouTube channel and on the podcast. Really, really, really appreciate everybody's support already. And again, please, if anybody buys box cookies, and all you have to do, email me at knicksfilmschool@gmail.com, a screenshot of, proof of purchase, give you a shout out on an upcoming podcast or in the newsletter. Tell me what you want. Happy to do that. And it's for, it's for a good cause. Girl Scout cookies, and the cookies are delicious and everybody wins. So thank you. And I think that's it. Thank everybody for checking out another episode of the Knicks Film School Podcast. Be sure also, if you're feeling especially generous, give us a 5-star rating or a kind review. And we hope to see everybody next Saturday night at the watch party, because it's going to be a really good time. So catch everybody then, and have a great week. Peace out.